Good evening. Welcome to Monday Night Bible Study. Hope you guys are doing well. Um, God has good stuff for us, and so glad that we're able to talk about all that He has in store for us today. We're taking a look at Acts chapter 18 today, and we're continuing the journey of Paul, and he is on his second missionary journey, and more of that will come out as we continue to talk, because he meets some people that are intriguing and be essential for what he's and where he's going in the ministry. So let's open in prayer, and then we shall begin. Thank you, God, so much for today, for the opportunity we have to serve you. We ask, God, that you would just continue to be an amazing God. You are so faithful. You are so true. We thank you for your word and the options and the opportunities that we have to study it. We ask, God, that you would give me clarity of thought and give the people that are hearing this just your presence, dear Lord, as they hear your word and as we look through the significance of what you're trying to teach us. Thank you, God. In your name we pray, amen. So we're looking here at Acts chapter 18, and I will read it for you here, and the first section, and then we'll dive into it more. After this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. And there he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Paul went there to see them because he was a tent maker, as they were. He stayed and worked with them. Every Sabbath he reasoned in the synagogues, trying to persuade the Jews and Greeks. When Silas and Timothy came from Macedonia, Paul devoted himself exclusively to preaching, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah. But when they opposed Paul and became abusive, he shook out his clothes in protest and said to them, "Your blood be on your own heads. I am innocent of it. From now on I will go to the Gentiles." Paul then left the synagogue and went next door to the house of Tertius Justus, a worshiper of God. Crispus, the synagogue leader, and his entire household believed in the Lord, and many of the Corinthians who heard Paul believed and were baptized. One night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. "Do not be afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent. For I am with you, and no one is going to attack and harm you, because I have many people in this city." So Paul stayed in Corinth for about a year and a half, teaching them the word of God. When Gallio was the proconsul of Achaia, Jews of Corinth made a united attack against Paul and brought him to the place of judgment. "This man," they charged, "is persuading the people of God in ways that are contrary to the law." Just as Paul was about to speak, Gallio said to them, "If you Jews are making a complaint about some misdemeanor or serious crime, it would have been reasonable for me to listen to you. But since it involves questions about words and names of your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I will not be a judge on such things." So he drove them off. Then the crowd there turned on Xenophanes, the synagogue leader, and beat him in front of the proconsul. And Gallio showed no concern whatsoever. So this is definitely an interesting point in history. We definitely know from Corinth, or from the Bible, that there's the two huge letters written to the Corinthians. In fact, there are more words written to the Corinthians than to any other group of people that Paul goes to visit. And so this is significant, the amount of time he spent here and what was happening. If you remember now closely here, we're looking at well, we'll get there in a second. So, starting with the first verse there, where Aquila is from, and Priscilla, it says Aquila is from Pontus, or also Pontus. This is the southernmost region of the Black Sea. It's kind of, if you go, if this right here is, we'll look at the backside of it. You go past Greece, up through the Bosporus Straits into where Turkey is, Istanbul, and go into the Black Sea, which is mainly Russia now, controlling all of that. The bottom part of the Black Sea is where he's from. And so he moved to Rome. They were tent makers, so there was business opportunities, and we just want to get out of the house. And ends up there, but he ends up leaving there with his wife whenever Claudius starts saying, "We're getting rid of these people. We don't want this." And so they've been moving around as well as tent makers. And this is where we find out again that Paul is a tent maker. That's his skill by trade, which is intriguing because as much knowledge as he has concerning the law, concerning the Jewish history, considering how well spoken he is, a lot of times people think like, oh, he must have been like an orator, or he would have been like, he was educated by the best teachers and stuff, but his actual physical job, day to day, was a tent maker, which is interesting because a lot of churches, as they talk about pastors, and they talk about, there are a lot of pastors that are that have two are bivocational, have this job and they do something else, and sometimes you can say, oh, okay, like I teach and I preach, and so, well, there's some similarities there, working with people, explaining things. But tent making is something that a lot of times people would not think of as an easy transfer of knowledge or skill base, and yet I love how I love how God says, I'm going to invest all of this knowledge, all of this wisdom, all of this stuff into this person, and he happens to have this job. Because it really, I think, opens up the door for all of us and says, it doesn't matter what job you're in, how can you be used by God where you are? And so I love that. I love the idea also, as Paul talks other places about how he used the skills that God has given him to make money whenever, it wasn't just like he's living off of people throwing money at him. He is working, and people are contributing to him, to the ministry that he's part of. But he is actually out there saying, like, I need to, as I'm going from town to town, I need to be paying my way to do so. And so here he is as a tent maker. He connects with them, and there is something to be said about people that you can connect with because of the job that you're serving in, maybe more so than someone else could that doesn't know the ins and outs, doesn't understand the daily problems that come up in the business that you're in. And not saying that we shouldn't try, but it's interesting to think about, as I preached on Sunday, how the opportunities that we have really, what are we doing with them? The people that God has put in our path, what are we doing with them, and how are we using them for his glory? Ephesians 2:10 talks about, the works that he's prepared in advance for us to do. A lot of those are the places that you're working. And so whatever job you are in, your physical job, there's also that spiritual element that we need to be using and incorporating as well. Okay, God, what are you going to do with this of where we are now? So it's important for us to, again, wherever we are, to use that. So here's Paul. He's there. And Paul, just as they had kind of a roundabout way to end up in Corinth, Paul had the same thing. He had, if you remember here, his second journey, he had started off, over in Macedonia, in the Asia Minor, in Turkey part, and he came over here after the vision. He comes over, he ends up some good, very positive stops in Philippi and Berea, Thessalonica, then Berea, and then Athens. But at the same time, he keeps getting chased. So it's kind of this like, I got to keep moving, and so. And that can be disheartening when you have to keep doing it. But it is his missionary journey and where he's going. And so here he ends. He's probably just there with Luke. Remember in Athens, we talked about last week how he was there and he just kind of waiting. And waiting in verse 3 or 4 here, we get to the fact that finally Silas and Timothy join him, which is great. But he's probably just hanging out with Luke, as Luke is the physician. And so maybe Luke is doing his own doctrine kind of things on the side as well. Bible doesn't really talk about that, but so he's doing this, and in verse 5 actually is where he's going to meet up with them, and so just a little bit of history about Corinth. Corinth was the richest city in the Western world at this time, if not the whole world. It was super wealthy, especially because of the trade that was coming through there. It sits on an isthmus that connects the Peloponnesus, which is the bottom part of Greece, with the top part. And there's the Adriatic Sea on one side, and the Aegean Sea is on the other side. And so Italy and Sardinia and all that places up there, they would have traveling routes right down through Corinth. Corinth would send it right on through there. It was the hub. When you didn't want to have to travel a short travel and then a short trip, like that was the place to go. And so it didn't really have anything of itself. There's no like natural goods like we talked about. Thessalonica had, was there to protect the gold, or Philippi was there to protect the gold. This didn't have that. This was just location, location. It was a great spot. And I think it's important, also just as a side note here, for us as Christians to put ourselves in good spots so that we can make the difference. One of the churches that I worked at down in North Carolina, was right there on Main Street, and it was great because the opportunity that we had to be able to draw people in because of where we were. Now, Berkey is not in on any on any main street or any stretch of any main street, and so and that's okay too because God can use us there. But when you have a good location, it's so important to be able to utilize that and be able to say like, this is what we're going to do because of where we are, and we got to work with that. And so I think it's important. The the main god there in Corinth was Poseidon, which again kind of shows and talks about the amount of trade that was coming through. They had so much trade and so much money. And so if you look at the book of Corinthians, First and Second Corinthians, this idea of wealth and money and what we do with that and how it intersects with faith is definitely one of the talking points that's mentioned there. And how do we put off the old way and grab a hold of what God has that's new and different, because it's hard. It is definitely a hard place to be. And so, so there they are. Verse 4, where does he go first? It says he goes to the synagogue. You know, he really still cares for the Jewish people, and he sees that connection as an easy one to make. Again, with our witnessing, I'm not saying just go for low-hanging fruit, but it makes sense. Don't miss the low-hanging fruit because you're like, I see one way up there, and I want to get to that one up there. That's nice. Make sure you take what God is providing as well, though. If there's people that come to you and say, hey, so like what church you go to? Tell them, invite them, talk about godly things. Don't just wait for those that are hard, like, wow, I really want to go for that person because, you know, they're an atheist and I think they worship Satan and I think they, calm. Take what God has given you as well. And so he says, I'm going to go to the people that I know, the people that know the stories, the people that have a background with God and godly things, and they know the verses as I'm reading here. And so he goes with what he knows. And I think it's important for you to do as well. The challenge would be, though, what do you know? What are the verses that you know? And if you don't know them, there are some great resources out there as far as how to lead someone to Christ. There's definitely some crazy things out there. But it's important for us to be able to have walked through, these are the steps you take, and this is what you need to do in order to make that happen. And so he goes to the synagogue and he says, I really want to share the gospel with these folks and to help them understand who God is and what it is. And I think that that's a great place for us too. We need to have people that we say, I feel comfortable with this. I'm going to go here. Now, it's going to turn very quickly as we read. But even in there, he says, God has good stuff, and that's what I want to be part of.